Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to a segment of Sticky Questions with Ayomi. I am your host. Thank you for tuning into today's segment. Please make sure you give it a thumbs up if you appreciate this content, and don't forget to subscribe to YASM TV. Now, since this is your first time seeing this beautiful face on camera, here are 3 fun facts about me. Fact number 1. For all my non-Nigerians, my full name is Ayomi, but I go by Ayomi, and my name is so important to me because it has a meaning. It means my joy is full. And so that gives you some insight into the kind of personality, the kind of vibes that I exude, joy, encouragement, motivation. So you can definitely thank my parents for that. Fact number 2, I love music and I love the opportunity to lead others in worship. Now, I wasn't born a singer, but that came about in my chronicles of being a PK, and we'll talk about that in another segment. But as I've grown and matured in this gift from God, I've appreciated the opportunity to lead others in worship. And fact number 3, I enjoy traveling. Now, I can't stay in one place for too long, so I visited countries in Europe and recently got stuck in Nigeria, but I digress. Anyways, now that you know a little bit more about your host, I'm sure you're wondering at this point, what are we going to be talking about in these segments? By the title, I know you can see that we'll be addressing questions, but the part that I want to highlight is that sticky component, right? So what I hope to do in this space is to address those questions and to shine light to those questions that kind of get those side eyes of, should I be talking about this? Should we be addressing them? They kind of get brushed under the rug. And so I want to make this disclaimer now. I am by no means an expert or the keeper or knower of all knowledge. What I hope to do in this space is to shed light and start a conversation in those challenging and sticky situations, uncomfortable times that we find ourselves as young Christians. So let's dive into today's question. So this question came about in one of the group chats that I'm a part of. One of our co-pastors posted a screenshot of a post that a young woman made. She went on and on about being exhausted in the process of waiting for her Boaz and wanted to start a family. So she made the decision of using a sperm donor. Is using a sperm donor a sin? Let's take a pause here. I kid you not, when I saw that post, I bursted into laughter. I'm thinking, what in the world is going on here? Why is this a platform to address this question? Is anyone gonna check this man for posing this here? But he brings a valid point, right? This is one of those uncomfortable questions. When I think about is using a sperm donor a sin, a couple questions come to mind. 1, let's address the biblical standpoint of, is it a sin? And then 2, should you actually be using a sperm donor? So let's start with question number 1. When the Bible talks about sin, the Bible explicitly states that marriage is honorable with the bed undefiled, and if a man looks at another woman in lust, he's sinning, right? And so when the Bible talks about sex, it says, don't have sex before marriage, explicitly. And so when we think about using a sperm donor without getting into all the nitty-gritty, the woman isn't having sex, right? And so is it a sin? It's not a sin, let's be honest, right? So let's address that component of, should you be using a sperm donor? Now, when I think about this question, even more questions come to mind. Number 1, she mentioned how she was exhausted of waiting. Why are you in a rush, right? God has a timing for everything. And so why rush God's hand? Why put things in your own hand? Question number 2, are you ready for the responsibility of being a single parent? There was a reason why God created the institution of marriage as a foundation for a family. And so are you prepared for taking on that task as one person? And then question 3, which I think is the most important one, is that question of conviction. Are you convicted that the Holy Spirit is leading you in this path as a young single Christian or as a young couple, right? And when I think about this question, the story of Mary and Joseph comes to mind. Now, I'm not saying that using a sperm donor and the conception of Jesus is the same, but there are similarities, right? And so when the angel visited Mary and said that she was going to conceive Jesus, right? That was a conviction, right? The angel also visited Joseph in that conviction so that when they were going to go through this process of having this baby without having sex, right, they knew that it was from God. And so I pose this question to you. Are you convicted that using the sperm donor is what the Holy Spirit is asking you to do? At this point of the video, I'm sure some people are like, well, Ayomi, I don't want to use a sperm donor. How does this apply to me? And so even when I was posing this question and thinking about it, it was so uncomfortable to come to terms with. It is a controversial question. And so that uncomfortable feeling reminded me of those situations, those times where God is leading you in a specific direction in an uncomfortable way, and you've already canceled it, or you can't humanly think of how this will be possible. And so I'm not here to tell you to use a sperm donor or not, but what I want you to take away from this video is when making those uncomfortable decisions or asking those sticky questions, make sure that you are listening to the leading of the Holy Spirit. Thank you for tuning into today's segment of Sticky Questions That You're Thinking. So let's discuss. Ciao.